Good, thank you so much. So thanks to the Sapienza University, and especially to Fabiola, who host me. I'm not pretty sure that I'm going to do something similar to what you've been watching so far, because I thought that the seminar was more like a sort of training for students, PhD students. And I will take some of my time to explain about researching in value, and then I bring 2 examples of my previous research. Okay, so a little bit about me. So this is I come from University of Valencia, okay, which is east coast of Spain. So we are close geographically and culturally, I guess. And I've been invited in Italy several times, especially in Sassari, Professor Vecchia, and also Tor Vergata and Luis, but never in Sapienza. And then just for you to know about when you start your career, I would say that it's nice if you first decide about your name. Look at my name, that's terrible. I've got many other names because my name, you know, in Spain we carry on our father's name and then our mother's name. So mine is Martina G, Gallarza, Granito. You've got this never ending. So choose one, the shorter the better, otherwise you have to always match names and then get it into one, which is now Martina Gallarza, but I got 4 of those. And then, yeah, be sure also to get your recall in different web pages, because this is Problems, you know, which is a big one, and then you got some information, but if you go into Google Academics, then you get different one with different number of papers and different H index, or if you go into Scopus, then you get a different one. So I would say if I had to start again my career, but to be very sure to handle all your tools for knowing your own production and other others. Okay, so my research interests are in consumer behavior and service marketing, as you can see right now, and yeah, value. I was just taking all the titles of all my papers and then put it together, and this was the result. Just to be sure that what I'm bringing to you is my expertise, which is consumer value. Okay, if you take, you will see. Is this okay that we have those stuff black at the screen? Can I maybe take it off? Oh, no. Sorry?
Here we go.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Sandra. So if we consider value, if we take the timeline about the first time that marketing was taught until now, we've got 5 definitions of marketing, and in the 2 last, we got the word value inside. So just to show you how relevant it is, okay? And also in every paradigm shift in marketing, you will find values in some moment, okay? In social marketing, then we broaden into the idea that there are other values that which are not just economic, and then experience. And what marketing is, okay? You can follow up as a relevance of value, then what has been developed, and then the 2 examples that I'm bringing, okay? So what about the people that you should be, I mean, that we are interested in when we talk about value? Obviously, Gallarza, because she was the one who produced the first definition of marketing as a trade-off between benefits and cost. Then Maurice Holbrook, as I said, because he brought the first experiential approach in the 80s with Elizabeth Hirschman, and he also offered the broadest taxonomy of values, okay, which is 8 values organized as a taxonomy, which is more than just a typology because it's organized in some sense. And then 2004, sorry, the service dominologic approach, which has been the more, disruptive paradigm that we have in marketing, because they put again the concept of value in the very center of our marketing approach, okay? Saying that consumers are always value co-creators, which is definitely in a relationship with what has been taught so far about how Barbara was producing the idea that we should be considering citizens as producers, and at the same time how the cities produce bringing something, okay? So we are definitely in the, we can apply value to cities. And then value is also a challenge with research, because it's a huge, I mean, it's very important concept, but at the same time, very difficult to apprehend, to conceptualize and to measure. Everyone knows about value till you ask them about the definition. So what value is. So that's why if you listen, I was taking some quotations from different moments on time just to show that there's always an everlasting information about it's difficult. But the very last one, or the one I like the most is that value is perhaps a chimera, but it's a very compelling one. I mean, we've been researching value so long. And then the very last one from Wells or Zeitmal again in 2020, keep on doing that is extremely important, especially right now. Okay, delivering value to stakeholders, not just to customers. Okay, so then what about value and tourism? Okay, this was a paper I wrote with it on the 75th anniversary of Tourism Review, which is the oldest journal in tourism, and it was about how value has been researched. We cannot read anything, but that's not the question. It's just to show how in every paradigm shift, value was there. Okay, what about tourism as a science? Definitely can discuss about it if these are not tourismology, but value is a concept that allows to understand this anthropology of tourism because of interchange of values, and it allows to have this diachronic approach to tourism. Okay, and then if I have to say, okay, which are the journals you should go in? There are so many, and we keep on having, as I said, a body of knowledge which is indigenous. We just use the word indigenous, which means how tourism is providing a knowledge on their own. But obviously, you should always try to go into journals which are not tourist, which might be, this is Journal of Service Management, Journal of Service Marketing, Relationship Marketing, all this, and even I was trying other journals in other countries just to show what is going on in other places. Okay, I think that's always good, not to concentrate just in Italians or also if you got it, Europeans. This is a slide to understand what comes next, which is how research value could be organized. Okay, which is we are interested about the intra perspective of value, which means which are the dimensions you can find inside the concept. Those dimensions, as I said, are of different nature, could be functional, social, emotional, even altruistic, and sometimes in a trade-off effect, which means positive and negative. So that also monetary cost and non-monetary cost, risk, and those can be related into an inter-perspective, which means how value is related to other notions, which normally is related into a chain. Okay, value gives you satisfaction, and satisfaction gives you loyalty. Okay, and this has been, as I said, something that easily organized research in other concepts also, but especially in value. Okay, so I'm showing you some examples. This was Tourism Management Perspective 2019, where I tried to organize every previous research. When we said about systematic literature review yesterday, it's nice if you can add something of them organized. Okay, anything which is inter, or both perspectives. Okay, and when you get into intra, let's see what scales have been used before to each dimension. So always try to look back before you try to provide new knowledge. And this was a way of making a classification. Zeitmal is providing two, benefits and costs, then Babin hedonic and experiential, and then you've got some others, and you try to make it as a framework where you try to insert. So then next is just finding who is in each cell. Okay, which author is doing something related to each one. And these are some examples of our paper. I mean, Giacomo and I have been researching for the last 10 years together, and we call this the Star Wars because it looks like a capsule, isn't it? So the idea was to look for, in this case, intrinsic dimensions in hospitality. Okay, how play, aesthetics, and how it is related to perceived value, satisfaction, and loyalty. I don't go into the details, but this was one idea. And then similar, but for restaurants, what I've done recently, 2020, is to find again which dimensions could be. Then cleanness was one, which is different from hotels, because you need in restaurants to have a clean space, and then to see how culture can moderate. Okay, it has a different, which we divided into three nationalities, so it was a cross-cultural study. You can do also this, and what has been very recently proposed is is to always have higher order models. It's a methodological approach because value is a very elusive construct. We don't know exactly what it is. We said it's trade-off between benefits and costs. Holger will tell you it's an experience, so it's definitely experiential. So what we can do more than this is to try to put it in a supra level, because it's difficult to measure it just by first order construct. Okay, so in 2017, with Giacomo also and with Professor Holbrook, we produced the first validation of the 8 dimensions of Holbrook. Okay, and it has to be done in a higher order model. As I said, my advice will be reflective and formative. This is reflective, the first one, and it gets you to a second order level, and this second order level is then embedded into a third order model. Okay, so value, that's why it's green, it's a grade, which is not an observed variable, but it's the second or third order variable. Okay, and then obviously you need the inter perspective to validate your concept. So then this was another way of doing it, okay, with another database, because once you've done it with one, then it's nice if you can replicate with difference to show that this is a solid way of measuring value in this sense. Okay, so the 2 examples I'm bringing to you more precise, as I thought it was related to city marketing, but city marketing is not precisely my expertise, and actually I'm learning a lot about what I'm listening to. I was telling to Barbara that that the historical perspective of when Mariela was presenting this idea of what could be the right city, and especially what Fabiola was telling about how difficult it is to define what a city is. And you were inspiring me many, which is always good, okay? Always try to open your mind to whatever, not consider that you're doing just one thing, because there's always chances of finding new things, okay? So I try to look back into my research and say, when was I approaching the city and in which sense, okay? So the first example I'm bringing you is about shopping tourism. That's why in the title I put some brackets, because the shopping experience is something which is precise, but at the same time, anything could be shopping, okay? We are consuming, now we are consuming education, we are consuming the city, we are consuming, so let's try to put it in brackets as a broader way of understanding. And the other one corresponds to World Heritage. I was invited in France to make research about Chambord Castle, which is a heritage from UNESCO's heritage. Okay, so first example. So here we are, Valencia. It's a city which has everything. Let's do some promotion about my anyway. You can find everything which is historical, but then the beach. And I was telling Barbara, it's my faculty is the most visited for Erasmus students. Okay? Not the city, Granada is a city, but the faculty of my university. Okay? So the shopping tourism and tourist shopping, if you get the difference, the idea is when the tourism is especially motivated by shopping, then it's shopping tourism. And then cities like London sometimes are advertised just because people go there for the weekend. And as you said, Milan could be this sort of city compared to maybe Rome, where you do many other aspects and then you shop. Okay, so those are 2 different areas. So those are the brands you may know about my country, okay, which is this one, Mango, and all Inditex, we've got obviously all the others too. But there's also a shift in Valencia into what are the very international brands and the ones which are local, and then you can find something different. So we made a research for Journal of Consumer Behavior about experiential tourist shopping. Okay, to me, experiential value, it's a pleonasm. I mean, to me, all value has to be experiential. It is definitely a way of co-creating. It's not something that is produced by the company and then I get it. No, it's something that has to be created. That's why it's fully phenomenological. Okay, it's fully experiential. But anyway, We put it in the title because otherwise it won't be informative. Okay. So adding causality to dimensions. What's what I mean by causality? The idea, we took some, a very mixed sample with students, as I said, which are considered as tourists because they stay less than a year shopping, people who go for shopping, and then also Spain and other countries, okay? So as you can see, so domestic and international tourists. And what we found is that there is a sequence in the value dimensions, okay? I don't go into the details, but the idea is that the quality brings you service quality, self-esteem, and the shopping enjoyment comes at the end. I guess it has to do also with the fact that sometimes we shop for others in tourism. So we get the chance of having a social understanding of what it is because you interact with the shop attendants, but also because there is a reward buying for others, okay? And then we produce an index and we measure how this index changes by demographics, okay? And what we found is, yeah, obviously the index of value decreases with age, and then it's simply significantly higher for men than for women in Valencia. So it can be a destination for men shopping, and also domestic tourists show higher value than foreign tourists. It's the third city in Spain. Okay, if you go to Madrid and Paris, you might find much more international. So it's good for segmentation. Okay, I showed that for I am shows you that we are different consumers because we are different shoppers. Okay, and then second research that I'm bringing is about heritage. As I said, this was published in Journal of Business Research, which is a general journal, and with people from the University of Tours. It's in the middle of France, you know, the Vallée de la Loire, which has different castles, and this is the castle of Chambord, which is third destination, third attraction in Spain, in France, after the Tour Eiffel and Mont Saint-Michel. 1 million of visitors, okay, and UNESCO. So in this case, two questions: what value should we choose? What value structure, what value scale should be used for a new realm, which is the heritage consumption of Chambord, and then how we should adapt it, okay? So it's more methodological. So looking into scales, as I said, always looking back to what has been done before. Otherwise, you cannot produce new knowledge if you don't look back. So we organize all scales, possible scales, how they come from the theory. So the theory was, as I said, experiential approach from Holbrook and Freeman in 1982. And then the theories that were produced, Schiess and then Holbrook, and then the scales. There are so many. And how these scales have been mostly used. Okay, so the Perval scale by Sunyan Sota, which is a very easy one, was very used, and also the EVS, which is experiential value scale, which is a little bit more complicated. So we said, okay, let's take these two. I was producing this graph, which is a nightmare because it's taken in a continuum how the adaptations have been. Okay, if authors take just exactly the same scale, Perval or EVS, the ones you've got in the middle is because they mix them, they have both. Some are mine even because I was distorting sometimes, because this graph would like to show how sometimes researchers in social science, we take it and then we find ways of mixing it in order to find our best results, which I guess is something that if we were wearing white blouses, if we were in chemics or whatever, we would do. So imagine this continuum as less distortion and more distortion. When you just use some items and then you change them, so the validation is less important, let's say. So we decided to be very restrictive and to take it exactly as it is and very slightly adapted. And we use it for 402 visitors of Chambord. Some were locals and some were tourists, which is good in this idea of how the city, this is 20 kilometers away from the city. So it's restricted. I don't go into the details, okay? But the idea is just to show how difficult it is to make people coming back to the Chambord Castle. Why? Because it's a one-shot experience, okay? You have it once and then shall I go back So if we take per value, there is a difference between revisit intention and warm intention. And if you take if yes, then again, even the revisit intention is not relevant, so they won't come back. So that's important information for the management, saying, okay, try to find something new, otherwise people won't come back. Okay, so my advice would be that if you use my concept value, but any other, try to always find what is the vision you would like to have. Is it just a general visions and you take the classes and that's enough, or is it just magnifying lines? And the one I would suggest is like an iPad. Okay, you take and then you open it. So if you want something general, then take a general scale as per value. But if you want to get into more information, then take a scale. And actually, Giacomo was telling me yesterday, aren't you fed up with the researching value because you've been 20? And I said, no, because with this overarching concept, whenever I want to go into something more precise, altruistic values, ethics, I then take the same scale, I give rational why I think this, and I use it as an example of something which is more different, okay? And if I said, what could be next for value? What could be? So I said, robotics is there, definitely, how this should be, and then we're gonna have a master class about this, how it has to be integrated with the national intelligence. And then definitely co-destruction in value. Okay, I think this should be next. And I didn't know that we were talking so much about co-destruction in this, but I mean, this is something, the hotel you were choosing for us doesn't have those hangars, but I hate this. So I hate this. This is co-creation. This is just telling me that I might have a misbehavior and take the hangars from the hotel. So what sort of co-creation is this that you bring in anyway? And the other example is definitely over-tourism, and this idea which is disruptive in the sense that the anthropology of tourism is just closed because people are not hosting me when I get there. Okay, so definitely this should be a realm of researching about co-destruction. Okay, and that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.